Also, I think what is underestimated is the challenge of the size of our country, both geography and population, right? Imagine if this government were to push through the idea that by 2030, everything has to be electric.
Which was a conversation in India, across the world, not too long ago.
Yeah, and look at the numbers. You can't do it.
You can't do
You
it.
don't have the production capacity for it. You don't have the policy capacity for it, and you don't have the energy for it. You can do the, that joke about how if you want a car, then you should negotiate for a truck, because when you lose that negotiation, you still get a car out of it. And if you want a motorcycle, then you negotiate for a car. When you lose that negotiation, at least you get a motorcycle out of it, right? I'm thinking increasingly that the reason why the government says things like this is because they're negotiating up to an internal number which they won't discuss publicly. Okay, so they'll say, look, if we reach 40% electrification by 2030, for example, we are okay. But to get to 40%, if we say publicly 40%, we'll only manage 10.
Correct.
And therefore, we must say 100% and put the fear of God into everybody. Because out of the fear, they will push harder. And therefore, we'll reach a much, much more positive result. How will you do it? It's the same with ethanol. Okay, in ethanol, there's a term called protection grade fuel. Protection grade fuel's job is to make sure that older vehicles can run. What does that mean? That means you have to sell 100% petrol still. Now, you can play the policy game here. You can say that, look, I will replace your current petrol 100 rupees a litre with E20. And therefore, pure petrol becomes 160 rupees a litre. And I disincentivize you from continuing to use pure petrol vehicles, because the commercial maths that you will do of your usage, you will say, man, if I were to just spend the extra 10-20 lakh rupees, whatever, and get something that runs E20, over the next 3 years, I'll recover the money I would have otherwise spent on petrol. And you encourage the private vehicles to move on. But there's no way to legislate private vehicles out of existence.
Incentivize.
Yeah.
In some form or the
Because you can't legislate, no.
Okay.
Imagine what your vote bank will do if you were to turn around and say your Splendor is so inefficient in terms of fuel economy and pollution that from 2 years from now, if you don't change your Splendor to something which runs E20 or whatever, or E85 or whatever, you will not be able to use your Splendor on the road. The guy who bought the Splendor will just feel like cheated, right? So the government is cheating me. Who's happy about fuel prices today? No one. Why? Because everybody is aware that almost half what you're paying is paying in taxation. The rest of it is the actual cost of the fuel. So we are overpaying for fuel anyway, is the feeling that we have. Now imagine on top of that, you say also the vehicle, which also we charged heftily taxation on, is no longer valid 2 years later, so you better replace your vehicle. First, if all of these guys had the money and they showed up at the dealership saying, fine, give me the 85 Splendor.
Once you have a very good point there, because we've already seen a parallel for this worldwide, even in India. Correct? FAME.
Yeah.
Which was for electrification, for electric mobility. Why should that not be there for the other forms of new engine types that are going to be needed for vehicles which will need new types of fuel to run?
100%.
It should 100% be there, whether it's CNG, whether it's flex fuel, because all of those are driving costs up.
Yeah.
All of those will drive costs up, especially when we talk about flex fuel vehicles, which just will be a lot more complex. And there will be a penalty for the user as well.
I am though saying don't do subsidies at all, Reduce the taxation on whatever is friendly to your goals. Why do you have to have subsidies at all?
No, correct.
For example,
whatever way and form, like, for example, net impact is lower.
You say if petrol is 100 kilometers per is 100 rupees per liter today, a vehicle that returns 38 kilometers per liter should automatically get a lower tax bracket because it's consuming less fuel. And when it falls to zero, you get some other advantage out of it, but not a subsidy. Look, a subsidy is not sustainable. A subsidy means a government has to take money out of its kitty, put it aside, and say, when somebody achieves and aligns with my goals, I will give them a financial incentive.
In fact, this is an argument that, if I'm not wrong, Toyota had made long back to the Indian government, saying that don't be technology agnostic.
Yeah.
Be outcome oriented. So don't say that we want EVs or this or that. You say we want this efficiency.
You want this result,
What technology gets you there is leave it to us. We have to meet it. We'll figure out a way.
No, and I'm saying you can build boundaries around this if you want. You not only say that I want this result. You want to say that all the technology that contributes to the result must be Indianized technology. Those skill sets must be brought to India.
Fair enough.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
But see, it's like me telling you, let's say that you worked for me. You were working on my team. It's the difference between me telling you, Kartik, I would like this thing finished by Thursday. Versus me telling you, Kartik, I want you to do this on Monday, I want you to do this on Tuesday, I want you to use this on Wednesday, and so that we can finish this on Thursday. The second method presumes you have no intelligence at all. You are not able to do your basic tasks. So I have to micromanage so that we can get to the Thursday goal together. Whereas if you were a smart, intelligent person, I would just be happier with Thursday ko mere ko ye chahiye. Will you finish it by Thursday? Whatever method you choose to use is not my problem. right? I think the government is correct in legislating some of it because we are not the most intelligent of people as a group of companies trying to achieve results. The FAME, I think, is exemplary in this because
I think it's not just intelligence. There's also vested interest, because
which is what I
there's
mean.
always the same thing, that because companies who are manufacturing cars and bikes have invested thousands and thousands of crores to set up manufacturing capacity, set up suppliers who are supplying components for a particular type. An engine typically, like, its life is 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
It's developed once, it's updated, and that investment is recouped through those years and also profit. So they obviously want to maximize that.
Yeah.
And in this, it was very interesting. Were you there for when Bajaj had launched the Chetak originally in Delhi, the presentation?
No.
So it was very interesting because Mr. Gadkari was there, and when it was his turn to speak, obviously Mr. Bajaj and Mr. Gadkari had their own set of conversations going on, which were talking to each other. So Mr. Bajaj had also said that we were put under intense pressure, and it was too much. And when Mr. Gadkari came on stage, he said this in as many words. मैंने तो गले पे तलवार रख दी थी कि ये करना है, क्योंकि मुझे भी पता था कि जब तक वो मैं नहीं करता तब तक ये चेंज भी नहीं होगा.
हाँ. No, and I'll add to that. When the FAME subsidies came out, the goal was the correct goal. We want to promote the idea that you should make more electrics. And we want to promote the idea that this is locally manufactured, so the technology, the skills, the jobs, everything stays in India. Because they did the Indian Jugaad thing by saying, okay, they don't want us to import anything from China. So how do we import stuff from China? They didn't say that let's manufacture the chargers here. They said, how do I make sure that the government thinks I have manufactured the charger here? So as far as I can tell, there was a customs leak which showed that chargers were coming to a company. And that company was selling those chargers to a second, to a third, to a fourth, and finally to the OEM, whoever this OEM was. And so on the OEM's books, it looked like they sourced this charger from a local company, except that 3 steps later, it had originally come from China. They cheated the system. In the sense of the nation's agenda is to localize this so that we are becoming stronger and stronger with time. And they defeated the original idea, which basically means that you're working against my country's interests. Which is why these systems like subsidies, on one side, we can argue whether they're positive or negative. But on the other side, remember, we are not as patriotic as we appear to be. There's a lot of marketed patriotism versus what's real patriotism, right? You can argue that Tata and Bajaj and all of that are doing a lot of work to make sure India grows. They grow on the shoulder of this and customers benefit from this. But I think that these people who imported these Chinese things and cheated the system, I think at some level they're not patriotic enough.
Yeah. There was a whole bunch of people who were effectively importing kits from China.
And I think because we are like this, and we are like this only, right? Because we are like this, we need to create more foolproof laws. Like the ABS law is my favorite loophole law, which says 124cc CBS, 125cc ABS. Excellent. Forgot to say how many wheels need to have ABS. You're lucky that the cars don't have front or rear wheel ABS or left side ABS and right side ABS. And in the two-wheelers case, so it is just like super oversight. And immediately people, including Bajaj, created the idea saying front wheel ABS.
Yeah.
In a country where habitually everybody thinks rear is the powerful brake, which is of course technically inaccurate.
Even more so to two-wheelers, is that a 2,000 rupee increase in price can change purchase decision massively. In two-wheelers,
this is why it has to be legislated correctly.
Exactly.
Because if all two-wheelers become 2,000 rupees more expensive, your fundamental requirement of the two-wheeler hasn't changed. You might postpone your decision a month or two, but you're back on the same wagon 2 months later saying, I still need it.
If you don't like opinions and opinionated people, then my recommendation is do not head to the MotorInc channel, because you're 100% going to get a clear shot at what we are thinking, and our hope is that it'll help you. So choose wisely.